Have you ever given a plant your best care, checking on it every day, watering it, feeding it, hoping for a generous harvest, only to see it produce far less than it should? Welcome back to Earthly Delights, my friends. Today, we are in the garden to talk about one of the most rewarding, but often misunderstood, crops we can grow, the humble cucumber. After many seasons working with cucumbers, I learned that simply giving them soil and water is not always enough. For years, I let my vines run freely across the ground, thinking nature would handle the rest. But the harvest came too late, ended too quickly, and many fruits were hidden under leaves, sitting on damp soil, becoming bitter, misshapen, diseased, or rotten before I even found them. That experience taught me an important lesson. A good gardener is not just someone who watches plants grow. A good gardener learns how each plant behaves, then guides it with care. Today, I want to share my clever ways to manipulate cucumbers so they produce early, often, and almost non-stop. And when I say manipulate, I do not mean forcing the plant against its nature. I mean understanding what the cucumber already wants to do, then helping it use its energy in the right direction. Instead of letting the vine waste strength in chaos, we train it toward health, fruiting, and abundance. By the end of this journey, you will know 8 practical techniques that can help you double, and sometimes even triple, your cucumber harvest. More than that, you may begin to see your garden differently, not as a place where we wait passively for results, but as a living partnership where knowledge, timing, and gentle guidance can turn a simple vine into a season-long source of joy. Let's get our hands dirty. Section 1. The warm embrace. Cheating time itself. Step 1 is microclimatic optimization, or as I like to call it, learning how to borrow time from the season. Cucumbers are warm season plants by nature. They come from a world of long sunny days, warm soil, and steady heat, so cold weather is one of the fastest ways to slow them down. If you sow cucumber seeds directly into spring soil that is still below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 15.5 degrees Celsius, the seeds may germinate unevenly, sit in the ground too long, or grow into weak young plants before they ever get a fair start. So instead of waiting helplessly for perfect weather, we create better conditions early. If I want cucumbers to produce sooner, I start my seeds indoors about 3 weeks before the last expected frost. I usually sow 2 seeds about 1 inch deep in biodegradable peat pots. This matters because cucumber roots do not like being disturbed. When you pull them out of a regular pot and damage those tender roots, the plant can suffer transplant shock and lose valuable growing time. To speed things up even more, I keep the root zone warm with a heating mat, aiming for about 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 to 29 degrees Celsius. With that steady warmth, cucumber seeds can sprout in just 5 to 10 days. Outside in the garden, I prepare the bed early by laying down black plastic mulch or landscape fabric a few weeks before transplanting. It works like a solar blanket, capturing heat from the sun and warming the soil deeper than the surface. This is one of the first lessons cucumbers teach us. Sometimes we cannot wait for the perfect season to arrive. We have to build the warmth, prepare the foundation, and create the right place for life to begin. Section 2. The vertical ascent. Defying gravity. Step 2 is trellising. For many years, gardeners have allowed cucumbers to sprawl across the ground, and yes, they can grow that way. But when vines run across the soil like a tangled jungle, they trap humidity, reduce airflow, invite soil-borne diseases, and hide the fruit right when you should be harvesting it. If we want healthier plants and a longer harvest, we need to lift them up. By training indeterminate, vining cucumbers onto a strong vertical support, such as a cattle panel, an A-frame trellis, or vertical twine, we completely change the way the plant grows. As the vine climbs, I gently secure the main stem to the support with simple garden clips every 4 to 6 inches. And when you see those thin, curling tendrils reaching out, leave them alone. Those tendrils are the cucumber's natural hands. They help the plant grip, balance, and pull itself upward. Once cucumbers are growing vertically, the leaves receive better sunlight, the air moves more freely through the plant, and the fruit hangs cleanly above the ground. That means fewer rotten cucumbers, fewer hidden overripe fruits, and much easier harvesting. Instead of searching through wet leaves and soil, you can see your crop clearly and pick it at the right time. There is a simple truth here. Structure does not hold the plant back. Structure gives it direction. When we lift cucumbers out of the mud and give them something strong to climb, they naturally reach for the light. Section 3. The art of letting go. Precision pruning. Step 3 is precision pruning, or what I like to call the art of letting go. I understand why many gardeners hesitate here. Cutting parts off a healthy cucumber plant can feel wrong at first. But when you understand how the plant uses its energy, pruning becomes one of the most powerful ways to guide it toward better production. Before I prune, I always sanitize my bypass pruners so I do not spread bacteria or disease from one plant to another. Then I look closely at the lower part of the climbing vine. In the place where each leaf meets the main stem, you may see small lateral shoots, often called suckers. When the plant is still young, I remove the suckers and flower buds from the lowest 5 to 7 nodes. The reason is simple. If a young cucumber plant starts trying to make fruit too low and too early, especially near the soil, it can drain itself before it has built a strong frame. By removing that early growth, we redirect the plant's energy into a stronger main stem, better sap flow, and a deeper, more reliable root system. We are giving up a small early harvest so the plant can become strong enough for a much larger one later. When the vine reaches the top of a 5 or 6 foot trellis, I use a method often called the modified umbrella system. I pinch off the growing tip of the main leader to stop its upward growth. Then I allow 2 or 3 side shoots to grow and drape back down over the sides, almost like an umbrella. This kind of structure can greatly increase fruiting space and, when managed well, can raise both fruit count and harvest weight. I also remove yellowing, shaded, or diseased leaves from the bottom of the plant throughout the season. Old leaves that no longer help the plant only block airflow and hold moisture where disease loves to begin. By cutting away what no longer serves the vine, we open the plant to light, air, and renewed strength. Section 4. Playing Matchmaker. The secret of hand pollination step 4 is playing matchmaker. And this is one of those simple garden skills that can completely change your cucumber harvest. Have you ever seen tiny baby cucumbers appear behind the flowers, only to watch them turn yellow, shrivel, and drop off before they ever grow? Many gardeners think the plant is sick, but most of the time, that is not disease. It is pollination failure. Cucumbers are monoecious plants, which means one plant can produce both male and female flowers separately. The male flowers usually appear first, often 7 to 10 days before the female flowers. A male flower has a thin, straight stem behind it and carries powdery yellow pollen inside. The female flower is easy to recognize because it already has a tiny swollen cucumber sitting right behind the petals. In a perfect garden, bees move that pollen from the male flower to the female flower. But in urban gardens, rainy weather, cold mornings, or areas with fewer pollinators, the bees may not visit often enough. When that happens, we do not have to stand back and lose the crop. We can step in and do the job ourselves. The best time is early morning between 6 and 10 a.m. when the pollen is fresh and most viable. I use a small soft brush and gently touch the inside of a male flower to collect the yellow pollen. Then I move to the female flower and lightly brush that pollen onto the sticky center, called the stigma. Another simple method is to pick the male flower, peel back the petals, and gently rub it directly onto the female flower. Within about 48 hours, a successfully pollinated female flower will begin to swell and grow. By helping pollination along, you can greatly increase fruit set, especially when natural pollinators are unreliable. It is a good reminder that some harvests do not happen just because we planted the seed. Sometimes the gardener has to notice the missing step and gently complete the process. Section 5. The Alchemist Brew, feeding for fruit, not just foliage. Step 5 is feeding with purpose. Cucumbers grow fast, produce heavily, and demand a steady supply of nutrients. But one of the biggest mistakes I see is feeding them the same way from start to finish. A cucumber plant does not need the exact same diet at every stage of life. If we want fruit, not just leaves, we must adjust the feeding as the plant matures. The first thing to understand is the NPK ratio, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. During the first few weeks, cucumbers need balanced nutrition to build roots, stems, and healthy leaves. A fertilizer such as 10-10-10 or 20-20-20 can support that early growth. Nitrogen is especially important at this stage because it helps the plant produce lush green foliage. But once the first yellow flowers begin to open, the strategy changes. This is the moment to reduce nitrogen and move toward a formula higher in potassium, such as 5-10-15 or 4-18-38. If you continue giving too much nitrogen, the vine may become huge and beautiful, with large leaves and strong growth, but very little fruit. The plant looks impressive, but it is putting its energy in the wrong place. Potassium helps drive fruit development, supports cell growth, and moves sugars into the cucumbers as they form. That is what helps produce crisp, firm, heavy fruit instead of just a wall of leaves. I also like to support the plant with calcium to reduce the risk of blossom end rot, and magnesium to help maintain strong chlorophyll production for healthy photosynthesis. This is where good gardening becomes more than feeding. It becomes timing. Early on, we feed growth. Later, we feed production. Nitrogen builds the outward display of the plant, but potassium helps build the harvest. If we want cucumbers that produce often and keep producing, we have to feed the purpose, not just the appearance. Section 6. The Elixir of Life. Mastering the flow of water, step 6 is mastering water, because cucumbers are mostly water themselves. A cucumber is made of more than 95% water, so moisture is not a small detail in this crop. It is the foundation of good flavor, steady growth, and reliable fruit production. But the secret is not simply giving more water. The real secret is giving water deeply, evenly, and at the right place. Cucumbers generally need about 1 to 2 inches of water per week, depending on weather, soil type, and temperature. The important word here is consistency. If the soil dries out until the plant wilts, then suddenly gets flooded, the cucumber vine becomes stressed. When the plant is under stress, it can produce bitter compounds called cucurbitacins. These often concentrate near the stem and under the skin, turning what should be a crisp, refreshing cucumber into something bitter and disappointing. To avoid that, I prefer drip irrigation or a soaker hose whenever possible. This sends water directly into the root zone, where the plant needs it most, while keeping the leaves dry. Dry leaves matter because wet foliage creates the perfect conditions for fungal spores to settle, germinate, and spread. With cucumbers, reducing leaf wetness is one of the simplest ways to reduce disease pressure. I also use a thick layer of organic mulch, such as clean straw, shredded leaves, or bark, around the base of the plants. Mulch helps hold moisture in the soil, keeps the root zone cooler during hot weather, and reduces the stress that causes uneven growth and bitter fruit. Consistency is the antidote to bitterness. When cucumbers receive steady moisture, they stay productive, crisp, and sweet. And in the garden, as in life, a reliable flow of nourishment prevents stress from building into something unpleasant. Section 7, Guardians of the Garden, Organic Warfare. Step 7 is organic protection, because every healthy cucumber patch eventually faces pressure from pests and disease. For cucumbers, two of the most common enemies are powdery mildew and the striped cucumber beetle. One attacks the leaves quietly, and the other can bring serious disease into the garden almost overnight. Powdery mildew often looks like someone dusted white flour across the top of the leaves. At first, it may seem harmless, but if you ignore it, it can spread quickly, cover the foliage, reduce photosynthesis, weaken the vine, and shorten your harvest. The good news is that we do not always need harsh chemicals to respond. A simple organic spray can help create conditions that make it harder for mildew to spread. I mix 1 tablespoon of ordinary baking soda with a few drops of eco-friendly liquid dish soap in 1 gallon of water. Then I spray it on the leaves in the cool part of the morning. The baking soda helps change the surface condition of the leaf, making it less friendly for mildew spores to settle and grow. The soap helps the mixture spread more evenly across the foliage. It is a simple reminder that good gardening is often about understanding small details before problems become too large. Then we have the cucumber beetle. These yellow and black pests do not just chew holes in the leaves. They can also carry bacterial wilt, a disease that can cause a healthy-looking cucumber plant to collapse very quickly. To outsmart them, I like to use a trap crop. About 2 weeks before planting cucumbers, I plant blue Hubbard squash around the edge of the garden. Cucumber beetles are strongly attracted to blue Hubbard, so they often gather there first instead of moving straight into the cucumber vines. I also dust the lower stems with food-grade diatomaceous earth when conditions are dry. It works by dehydrating soft-bodied insects that crawl through it, and it gives the young plants one more layer of protection. In a good garden, we do not try to conquer nature with poison. We protect the crop through observation, timing, balance, and knowledge. Section 8, the endless bounty, the law of harvesting. And finally, we come to step 8, the law of harvesting. This is where many gardeners lose production without realizing it. A cucumber vine is not trying to feed us as its main purpose. Biologically, its goal is to reproduce. It wants to grow fruit, mature seeds, and pass its genetics into the next generation. When you leave a cucumber on the vine too long, it begins to swell, turn yellow, and develop hard seeds. Once that happens, the plant receives the signal that its mission has been completed. It has produced mature seed. After that, the vine often slows down. It may stop making new flowers, abort small fruits, and begin moving toward decline. That is why one of the best ways to keep cucumbers producing is to harvest early and harvest often. I check my vines every 24 to 48 hours during peak season. For pickling cucumbers, I harvest them when they are still small, usually around 2 to 4 inches long. For slicing cucumbers, I pick them at about 6 to 8 inches, while they are still deep green, firm, smooth, and crisp. Every time you remove young fruit, you interrupt the plant's reproductive mission. The vine responds by pushing out more flowers, setting more fruit, and continuing the cycle. This is the secret behind nonstop production. You are not stealing from the plant. You are encouraging it to keep working. There is a beautiful lesson hidden in this habit. To keep receiving, we must keep making room. If we let the harvest sit too long, It overmatures and slows the whole system down. But when we pick at the right time, share generously, and keep the basket moving, the garden stays active, productive, and full of life. Outro. A harvest of wisdom, my friends. The garden is one of the greatest teachers we will ever have. When we warm the soil early, lift the vines upward, prune with purpose, help pollination, feed according to the plant stage, water with consistency, protect organically, and harvest with an open hand, we are doing more than growing cucumbers. We are learning how abundance is created. Now you have a complete set of practical techniques to guide your cucumber plants toward earlier, more frequent, and longer production. Do not be afraid to interact with your plants. Watch them closely, touch the vines gently, guide their growth, and learn what they are telling you. If this journey helped you see cucumbers in a new way, please hit the like button, subscribe to Earthly Delights, and share this with another gardener who dreams of a bigger harvest. And tell me in the comments, which of these 8 steps are you going to try first? Until next time, keep your hands in the dirt, keep your heart open, and never forget to savor the earthly delights. Happy gardening!